Hi guys, welcome back to Bella's Big Adventures. My name's Sue and today I'm doing a bit of last minute cooking. Now normally this is something I cook well in advance. I am so behind with the puppy and all the things that are going on at the moment. So I'm going to try to do a Christmas cake in the Remoska. Now the ingredients are quite costly, so it is a bit of a risky experiment, but I'm thinking I may try some cupcake versions and a full-size cake as well, just to see how we get on. Obviously the Remoska doesn't have a thermostat which alters the temperature, so I am set with what it has and I'm going to have to keep a beady eye on it. Right, so in front of me, as you can see, I've got a big bowl of mixed fruit. I have had this soaking in rum for a couple of days. The recipe actually calls for apricots and cherries and things like that. I'm not a big fan of cherries in cake, so I've missed it out. So if there's any of the fruit you don't like, you can just replace it with more raisins or currants. So then we've got 5 eggs at room temperature. We've got some black treacle. You just need a tablespoon of that. We've got 300 grams of brown sugar, 300 grams self-raising gluten-free flour here because Doug doesn't eat wheat. In theory. I've got 60 grams of ground almonds. You can use just chopped nuts if you prefer. And we've got some mixed spices here. So we've got ginger, freshly grated nutmeg, and 2 different sorts of mixed spice. I have this Cake Factor one, which has different ingredients in it to the Bart's one that I've been using in the past. A large lemon, juice and zest, and some room temperature butter, unsalted butter, cubed, 300 grams again. So because I'm going to use the Remoska and I have got the Tria, I am going to preheat it slightly. You can put it on a hob with the Tria, you can't with the Grande or the Standard. So first thing I'm going to do is cream the sugar and butter together. It does just say on the recipe to add all of the ingredients and mix them together apart from the nuts and fruit. So in goes the brown sugar. And the butter. And don't forget to get things off the mixer and give it a good scrape around to make sure it's all blended properly. So I'm going to put in the wet ingredients, the treacle and the lemon juice next, and the eggs, and I'll beat them in slowly. And as you add the eggs, I then add a tablespoon of flour alternating with a bit of eggs. So the first thing I need to do is squeeze the lemon. A good way to make sure you're getting as much juice out of your fruit as possible is to give it a quick roll. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of black treacle. It is very thick, so you do have to be careful you don't get it all over you. Hence the apron. Drizzle it around a little bit. Get all those wet gooey bits mixed together. We'll give those a little whisk up. Hello Bonnie, do you want to have a look, see what I'm making? Yeah. Now I'm going to add some of the eggs and some of the flour, a spoonful at a time, alternating, so that it doesn't get all messy and congealed. So first things first, we'll get a tablespoon and we'll add some flour. I normally keep the mixer running while I'm doing this, just on slow. So we'll add a little bit of egg and the flour and spice mix together. So I'm adding 3 tablespoons of flour. Speed that up a little bit. Add a little bit more egg. And so on until you've added all the flour and all the egg. Just need to make sure that all the flour and all the sugar and all the egg is thoroughly mixed together. So we'll just give a little scrape around the edges. And now we will add the ground almonds, 60 grams of ground almonds. It's sometimes hard to believe that all this fruit is actually going to fit into the mix, and there's a lot more fruit than there is cake mixed. So I do this gradually, leave the mixer running and add a little bit at a time. The alcohol does cook off obviously while you're cooking it, but if you don't want to put alcohol in at all, you can just add a little bit of orange juice to your fruit. It helps to plump it back up after being dried. There's a little bit left, but I'll just stop it there and give it a little scrape around the bowl again. Because as you can see, it's getting very full now. Right, that's the fruit in. One more mix for a few minutes, and then it will be time to put it in the pan or the baking cases, which is the next job. So as I said, the next job is to actually grease and line your tin. This is a 20cm one and it fits in the Remoska perfectly well. But I am first of all going to try and do the cupcakes because they're a bit of an experiment. I have some silicone cases which I think I might use in the bottom and then put paper cases in as well so that I can reuse the silicone ones. So we'll put to the side. Not going to win any prizes for neatness, but there is a bit of baking paper on the bottom. Right, so we just tuck that in, and it doesn't matter if it overlaps in the bottom slightly. Okay, one lined and greased tin, ready to take some of the mixture. Before I fill the big tin up, I thought I would make some cupcakes. So I'm doing 6 and I'll do another 6 later. I've put the first 6 in the Remoska and I've just turned it on. I put them inside the silicone cases as I said earlier, and I'm hoping that will hold them a bit firmer. They do seem to be spreading a little bit, but we'll see. So after about 10 minutes, I will check on them to see how they're getting on, and if they're sort of looking a bit burnt on the top and not quite done, then I will put something over the top like a bit of foil or a bit of kitchen baking paper. I'm aiming for about 25 minutes is my best guess, and I've put another 6 on one side and the rest is going to go into the baking tin. And just smooth the top a little bit. I think that looks delicious already and it isn't even cooked yet. And hopefully we're going to have 12 cupcakes too, so that would be nice. Right, that's 15 minutes and the tops are starting to brown quite a lot. Right, they've had 25 minutes plus I turned the heat off and left them for another 5. The skewer is clean, so I'm going to take those out now, and while it's still hot I'm going to put the big one in next, I think. Okay, let's get the big one in. Being careful not to burn my hands on the side of the pan because it's already hot. And I am going to start this one off covered probably for the first hour. I suspect it's going to take at least 2 hours maybe. Let's put that down. Okay. Turn it back on. Yep. Right, so they're on a cooling rack. They look nice. They're still a bit spongy. The skewer was clean and the raisins aren't too burnt, so I think they'll be alright. They haven't risen as much as I would expect. Mind you, they are gluten-free, so they tend not to. Right, let's have a quick look. It's been in for an hour. Ooh, I'm burning the paper. I might swap that for a piece of foil if it's not done. Ooh, that's looking quite done actually. I'll get a skewer and test it. Let's just see how it's doing in the middle. That's still quite wet. Loosely topped it with a piece of foil. So if the top gets burnt, then I'll just have to cut it off. That's all there is to it, but we'll put the lid back on for another half an hour and see how we go. Right, well these have cooled down, so I'm just going to test it and see how they're getting on, so that I can adjust the time of the others if necessary. Let's just see. Well, the bottom looks okay. Just cut it open. It's crusty on the top, crumbly on inside.
And actually, as a gluten-free cake, they don't hold together because of the lack of gluten, obviously. But I would say it's cooked. The cakey mixture is cooked. The proof's in the tasting, as they say. So let's see. Good flavour. Slightly crusty on the top, so I might cover them with foil for the next batch. But the inside's nice, soft and fluffy, and the fruit's still juicy. So as a gluten-free cake, that's pretty good, I'd say. Let's hope the big one works out as well. Right, the paper's starting to char around the edges. And the fruit on the top is starting to look a bit charred. But the cake itself has risen, as you can see by the crack most probably, and it's feeling done. But let's do the spike test and just see. In the middle, and that's fairly clean, I have to say. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with that. I think what I'm going to do now is turn it off, leave it in the pan to cool, because that will give a little bit more residual cooking without the heat on the top. Right, so I've got the cupcakes in. The heat is still quite warm, but I'm going to pop this piece of silver foil over the top, just loosely, because last time the tops were quite crunchy. And get the lid back on. Yep, and give these 15 minutes and then we'll check on them. Meanwhile, the cake is still in the tin. And I'm quite happy with that, to be fair. It doesn't look too bad. I can remove some of the burnt raisins around the edges. And I am going to decorate it, so when it's cooled, it'll have a layer of apricot jam, a rolled piece of marzipan, and a rolled piece of icing. Obviously, if you want to put any fancy decorations on the top, you can. But I'm not going to decorate the cupcakes. I might just sprinkle them with a bit of icing sugar. Right, that's 15 minutes. Let's have a quick look. Oh yeah, they're doing okay. I would say they need at least another 5 minutes. Right, they've had another 5 minutes. And they look pretty good, to be honest. I'm going to release the cake from its tin and let it cool a little bit more. It's almost cool. We'll take it out. And we will get rid of this paper. And what happens now normally is once it's cold is you pierce the top and feed it. Now I'm a bit short on time, so normally people would make these sort of November time, and then what you would do is every week you would open it up and put about a couple of teaspoons of alcohol on the top. Yeah, so all in all, I'm actually quite pleased with that. I mean, it took a total of 2 hours. Normally you would cook it in an oven for much, much longer on a lower heat. Usually I used to take about 4 hours on 120 to 130 degrees. This is obviously between 160 and 180. So although the edges are slightly charred, the middle is cooked. So that's, you know, a success for me, frankly. Yeah, I'll carry on feeding it with rum until a few days before Christmas, and then I'll put the marzipan and icing on. And not everybody likes that part, of course. You can have it without. As I say, the cupcakes are fabulous with cheese. And if you haven't tried it, do give it a go. It's brilliant. Yeah, so we are intending to hit the road and travel over to the UK. Fingers crossed that the train strike doesn't affect the Eurotunnel too much. If I don't get to speak to you before Christmas, have a fabulous time and a happy and healthy new year. And so all that's left to say from me, Doug, Bella and Bonnie, thanks for watching. We'll see you next year.